You want to know what's funny about the experience of grief? The funniest thing is that nobody gives a shit. Now, I hope you were triggered by that because hopefully that means you'll stay and listen to what that really means as I get through this first episode of the podcast after losing my mother. Boy, what a ride it's been. It's been almost a year. So it was October of 2022. Right now it's July of 2023, and I'm just finding the courage to pick up a damn microphone to even talk about this. I mean, it's truly an experience like no other. And having witnessed other people experience losses like this in their lives, I realized how utterly clueless I was about what they were going through at the time. It's like, yeah, sure. Parents die. Grandparents pass. Like this is the circle of life, right? You get a little bit older, we expect your parents to get older as well and pass before you, and you're supposed to pass before your children and before your grandchildren. That's how it works, right? Well, when you're in the process of grief, it doesn't feel like that's how it's supposed to work. That shit don't feel right. I remember when I was a little kid and my grandparents got sick. My grandfather passed first, stomach cancer, and my grandmother passed later, just old age. She didn't have any ailments that we knew of. And as a child, I looked at that and said, wow, grandparents are old people. It never occurred to me that there's a point at which I'm my parents' age and my parents become my grandparents' age. Like, it never occurred to me that was a part of the circle of life that impacted me at all. Because when you're a kid, your parents live forever, right? It feels like an endless supply of parenting is in front of you. Until one day, you're all grown up and watch your parents get older and realize, okay, my parents are now the grandparents of the story. And eventually they're going to pass. Oh, that shit hits like a ton of bricks. And then one day you're bedside when your mother passes, and that changes everything. That changes your complete understanding of the circle of life. It changes your understanding of mortality, including your own. It changes your position in the family with an understanding that, guess what? Bitch, you next. However many years it is, you next. It changes a lot of things about the way you see yourself and the way you see the world. And frankly, the way you see your parents, including the one who has passed on. It's no secret. I had well, for some of you it is, but for many of you it's not. I had such a challenging relationship with my own mother. And the funny thing about it is, as challenging as it was, the ingredient that was missing, or the ingredients that were missing, love wasn't one of them. Which made it all the more perplexing that our relationship was as complicated as it was. And over the years, I've come to some understandings about why it was that way my entire life. But for this particular episode, the why doesn't matter. It's the what it was and what it represents in this new normal I'm experiencing. Many times feeling like a motherless child, other times feeling like the new empowered matriarch of the family, and other times just feeling like asking God why he allows the process of dying to be such a painful thing to experience and to witness. Because if that's the one guaranteed part of life, because people say death, taxes, those are the guarantees in life. Well, I say forget taxes. Death and grief are guaranteed, because so long as people are passing away, there are people who miss them and are infinitely and permanently impacted by their absence. You could not have family at all. You could be a cashier at the local Piggly Wiggly, honey, and you could have been slapping them pancakes down with skill. And there will be someone who came there, whose life you affected, Doesn't matter whether you have parents or children or grandchildren or aunts and uncles and cousins to miss you. There will be someone left on this planet who misses you when you pass. Believe it. Believe it. Making death and grief the two only guarantees in life. I really want to take a reasonable amount of time, a deeply quiet opportunity to really talk about this and what the past, 8 months now? What the past 8 months have been like for me. Some of the days deeply rooted in gratitude, understanding this new place in my life, and some days feeling utterly distraught and pulling through mom's things, finding one small piece of memorabilia, and the rest of the day is shot because my head is completely out of the game for the rest of the day. Looking at this inanimate object, but the meaning behind the object, the memories behind the object, the questions left behind the object, the permanence of understanding that whatever questions about this crazy relationship that we had, that the opportunity for them to be answered with the two of us present here on earth is gone. And it wasn't for the lack of me trying. Sometimes I wonder, gosh, is it easier to lose someone when the relationship was complicated? Or is it easier to lose someone when the relationship was this beautiful, healthy, fulfilling, nurturing presence in your life? Which one of those relationships is more difficult to mourn? And the truth is, I think they're equally difficult. At this point, I believe, listen, if someone was absolutely your best friend and you had a truly long-lasting, healthy, pleasurable relationship with them, I can't even imagine what that's like, experiencing that kind of loss. But I do know what I have learned from experience and from observation and through conversations is that when the relationship is strained or it's complicated, it doesn't make it any easier. There's no real sense of relief that the complication is gone because now you're facing the fact that there is no opportunity left to ask questions and get reasonable answers about why things were always so complicated. From the word go. I want to take some time with these because right now I'm in the midst of running between 5,000 things that need to be done. I'm in the middle of an estate sale. I'm trying to finally move back home to my hometown, out of state permanently at the end of the month. Like, there's so much going on, but I want to take an opportunity to sit and talk about this thing called grief that so many people are experiencing, but so many people also aren't talking about, not in ways that bring any kind of healing anyway. Because, there's something about polarity. I believe polarity is necessary. But there are times when, as human beings, when we get it wrong. Like if we see someone who is really happy about something, what do? Oh my God, what is going on? I want to know what you're so happy about because I want to congratulate you. Listen, send a round of drinks down to the end of the bar down there because they're celebrating and they're happy and I'm excited for them. Shit, send a round of drinks. But if you experience and display the same or the equal amount of grief or sadness as you do happiness, the first thing people want to do is talk you out of it. Oh, it'll be okay. Don't cry. Come on, smile. Let me take you out so we can put a smile on that face. We are so happy to leave people to their positive emotions of excitement and happiness and joy. Yet the moment someone experiences or demonstrates the same level on the other end of the spectrum of the sadness, the first thing we want to do is talk them out of it. That's problematic because I noticed because we're uncomfortable with their sadness, because we've always been uncomfortable with our own sadness. What do? We're going to talk them out of it. We understand that they're polar opposites, happiness and sadness. They exist on the scale of polarity. But we want to talk people out of the sadness part because there's a discomfort there. But the funny thing about it is, you're robbing people of their ability to be truly happy and experience great joy. Because don't forget, the rules of polarity go something like this. As high as a thing goes, and as low as a thing goes, creates a continuum. They're polar opposites. So in order for you to experience great joy, you also have to have known some level of great sadness. But when we're trying to talk people out of or shield people from the experience of sadness and the expression of sadness, what we're saying is, I also don't want you to be capable of experiencing the same levels of happiness and joy on the other end, because the law of polarity says the middle is the middle. And if you don't let people go real low, the middle means they can't go real high. There's no equal and opposite that allows them the permission to experience great joy. And one of the things that I've learned in my grief is the permission to experience grief and sadness and pain is important. It is a critical part of the human experience. And trying to talk yourself out of it or let someone else talk you out of it is dangerous. I believe this is why we have so many people who are not emotionally resilient. Because some way or another, whether it was parents or friends or themselves, they shielded themselves from the full expression of the range of human emotion. They've avoided negative emotion to the point where if it's not a high, I don't like it. If it's not a high, I don't deserve to experience it. So they fall apart when they break a nail. They fall apart when the car runs out of gas. They fall apart when the landlord calls and says the rent is overdue and I may have to evict you. They fall apart because they haven't exercised their full range of human emotions, and they don't even know how to be resilient when something is happening that they need to demonstrate some resilience about and some emotional fortitude and strength. So I've given myself permission to be in this process of grief in a real way, without shaming myself for how that grief looks in any given day. And the reason why I'm going to share so much about it is because I'm hoping to give permission to a whole lot of other people who are experiencing some form of grief or pain or sadness and aren't allowing themselves the free expression of it in such a way that they become resilient. Where the hell do you think resilience comes from? You going to tell me you go to the gym and pick up the 1 pound weight every time and expect you're going to build some kind of strength and resilience with that shit? Stop playing. Y'all play too much. But yeah, I needed to take a moment to put on a quick headset, grab a microphone and say, I'm still here. I'm still alive. Listen, I don't think I have put up a podcast episode for over a year at this point. So this is just fair warning that I'm going back to picking up microphones. I don't even listen. I'm using some whack ass, cheap ass app right now to record this. I don't even know if the sound quality is going to be good, but I really don't care. Because at this point, I just need to be back out there and break the ice. And I'll get to my better equipment when I get to it. So however this sounds, you're going to deal with it. And guess what? I'll see you next time when I'm prepared to open up this topic wide open. This topic and others. Because remember, this is about interventions. The conversations that you need to have with yourself to challenge your beliefs, your conditionings, your choices. It doesn't always take somebody outside of you to ask you hard questions. Sometimes you should put yourself in a position to ask yourself, why do I believe this? Why do I keep choosing this? What's going on with me here? And what is it about my experience can I offer to others who are dealing with their own bullshit and who may need a voice of reason, not telling them what to do, but demonstrating what can be done? All right, y'all. I don't know how long it's going to take me to record the real next episode. So for now, take this, chew it up, digest it, enjoy it, and I'll see you next time. Now, before I leave, I realized I had to come back to answer the question to address the thing I said at the beginning, which is nobody gives a shit. What do I mean by that? When I'm talking about your grief and your loss. Oh gosh, I really wish I could remember um who it was who said it. I believe it was Ken Brisbane, also known as Ken Billions. But he said everybody gets a chance. When it comes to losing a parent, everyone gets a chance. I mean, the truth, and that's true. If the circle of life is working the way it's supposed to work, you lose a parent. Because anything less than that is tragic. If you're burying children or grandchildren, something's off. And listen, I may be a Christian, but there's something to be said about the circle of life. And I will be the first one to be like, if somebody's burying a child or grandchild, I'm like, nope, something's off. Something's wrong. God, I got questions. This isn't working the way it's supposed to. I need answers. Listen, here's what you can do. You can send me a self-addressed stamped envelope too, because I need to send you some questions. Why it is these people are able to experience this grief like this. But like I said, if the circle of life is working the way it's supposed to work, you lose your parents. Hence the idea that nobody cares. Because here's the thing, if you have a group of friends who love you and are invested into your heart and into your life in a very personal way, they're going to care that you're experiencing the pain of grief. And they're going to hug you, and they're going to bring wine. They're going to offer to take you out to get things off your mind. They're going to care that grief is sitting in your bones, creating a pain for you that makes some days difficult or challenging to get through. But the other several billion people on the earth don't give a shit. They don't care. Because death and loss, especially of a parent or a grandparent, is so normal because of the circle of life that the other several billion people don't care about your experience. That's why sometimes, I was disappointed. Let's just put it that way. I found myself disappointed in how my loss was received by some people that I know and love. No kidding. I was, in fact, it was, how can I put this? It was almost, I'm trying to choose my word carefully because some of you may be on my timeline listening to this. And trust me when I tell you, I'm not trying to call anybody out. And I'm not trying to shame anyone after the fact because I have an understanding of how this happens. But I was disappointed, mildly, if you will, in some of the reaction from people I expected more from in terms of reaching out about what I was experiencing and losing my mom. So if people who know you and love you don't show up a certain kind of way, what do you think the other several billion people on earth think about you losing your mother? They don't give a shit. Your experience of grief and loss, while it's wonderful when there are the few people who are really invested in you, who reach out and hug your entire soul and hold you up during this difficult time, I'll tell you what, the real experience of it is this. You're supposed to take that experience and it is supposed to transform and mold you and usher you into a new phase of your life. That experience is for you. The best advice I can give you is don't be wrapped up in the way other people respond to it, especially people who've never lost a parent. Because I'll tell you one thing, before I lost a parent, I realized how very little I understood and how it's even possible that when people talked about losing their parents, I was not quite as present or as empathetic because it was just something I didn't have an experience to connect it to. And in my mind, it's the circle of life. It didn't make me go, oh man, I can't imagine losing a parent and fall into this pit of sadness. It just didn't. You're going to have to recognize that people aren't always capable of that. They're not set up for that. The experience of their lives doesn't make that possible. Some people lost their grandparents when they were real young. Some lost their grandparents before they were even born. They don't even know what that experience is like. Don't be moved by the people who know and love you, who don't necessarily reach out with the kind of understanding, the kind of gentle-handedness, the kind of empathy and the kind of love that you hope for when you're experiencing something like the devastating loss of a parent. Because for the most part, a lot of the people who know you just don't understand exactly what it is you're experiencing. And the other several billion people on earth don't give a shit. And that's okay. Because we all get a turn. Use your turn to grow in your experience with mortality. Use it to ask yourself questions what you want the last of your years to look like while you're on this earth. I'm probably dipping back over into things I originally said in the podcast, but I don't care. Honey, there are things that people have said to me that I could hear 100 more times and would still need to hear it 101. Oh, the things that you will learn about yourself as you go through this process and find yourself face to face with yourself, face to face with what you're going to be leaving, not only on the earth in general, but with your children and grandchildren in particular. If you do have children and they give you grandchildren. Don't get lost in the experience of your grief. I guess that's really what I'm trying to get to. Don't get lost in the experience of your grief. Lost to the point that, like I said at the beginning, it becomes this nightmare that you don't wake up from. Which actually I said on Facebook, I didn't say it here. So I will say it here. MTR, Mediocre Tutorials and Reviews. Lovely young man who I've been following for a long time. Recently lost his father. And his father was a single father and his best friend. And he said it's very much like the opposite of a nightmare. When you're having a nightmare, you wake up and go, oh, thank God. Woo! That was a fake experience. It was a nightmare. It was a dream. I'm awake now. It's over. But he said losing his father to him was the opposite of that. It's like the nightmare that you know for a fact you don't get to wake up from. You don't get to wake up one day and realize, oh, Dad's not gone. He's still here. Imagine grief like that. It's simply one of the worst experiences that you don't get to wake up from. And you don't get to return it for a store credit because you lost your receipt. Nah, it's yours. It's yours for good. And you get to make a lot of choices about what you're going to do with it. Are you going to grow from it and find a new way of being that seats you firmly in gratitude and allows you to live the rest of your days in such a way that you are content, satisfied, and full of joy? Or not? All right. This time I really am signing off. I have on a pair of headphones and I'm walking around recording. This might be my new thing. I usually sit at my desk and record my podcasts, and that's a little bit dry and it makes you talk a little bit funny and you get a little bit stiff all up in your throat and shit, like, because you're trying to say things correctly. But there's something about walking around while I'm talking where it feels like I'm really having a conversation with you. I may keep this format for the future. But for now, for real this time, I'm signing out and I'll see you in the next episode.